Kevin Syracuse from Sports Hour. We're live here at the Bills game.
You get that?
Good evening and welcome into our second episode of Sports Hour of the semester. I am your host, Kevin Syracuse, alongside Trevor Hauer, who joins us now for the first time this semester. Trevor, glad to have you back on.
I'm always happy to be on. It's always a great time here. So getting ready to talk some hockey, it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, so we talked to Josh last week about the NHL so far with this COVID season, and not to repeat what we talked about last week, but I just want to get your thoughts to get us going here about what your opinions are on how the season has gone, hockey-wise, COVID-wise, Sabre-wise, everything.
Well, it's nice to finally see hockey back. You know, like we actually finally get to see the players back in regular season form. All the teams are back. I mean, there are some COVID outbreaks here and there, you know, especially with the Devils, especially with the Sabres. You know, looking at teams like the Dallas Stars, too, and the Nashville Predators, they all had their fair share of number of players, members of the organization on COVID lists and stuff like that. But all in all, as a hockey fan, it's so nice to finally see them back. Every single team is back and fighting for the top prize, which is the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, now something that Josh and I didn't mention last week, because I believe this came out after we had the show, but it was reported that Rasmus Ristolainen with the Sabres, he was one of the ones that tested positive, and he was really affected by it, like to the point where he thought he might not wake up when he went to bed. Like, that's how bad it was. And there was an article saying how it was just really bad for him, and he couldn't breathe. He would walk up the stairs and he would feel tired. He would sleep for 12 hours, still feel tired. His heart was pounding. Yeah. And it was just crazy. And everyone was saying, like, he's one of the most fit guys on the team in the league. And that just goes to show it affects it affects different people differently.
Yeah, it's not just him too. It's, you know, head coach of the team, Ralph Kruger, who's in his 60s, I think, that tested positive for COVID-19, as well as Taylor Hall. He was on the list as well. There was just a whole number of players that were affected by this. But it's nice to see the Sabres back on the ice. Everyone's okay. And you know what? The season's already been in for like, what, a month now? It's already been going on for a month. So it's nice to finally see everybody back and healthy. And we love to see just nobody be affected by COVID as much as like other teams are. So.
Yeah, now one last thing about that is, along with Ristolainen, he's probably going to be out for a long time, if not the whole year. It was also just announced today that Jake McCabe will be out for the rest of the year for the Sabres after an ACL and MCL injury. Or was it PCL? Or?
Yeah, he took an awkward collision into the boards, and it was like an ACL, MCL, meniscus injury. So we're not going to be seeing Jake McCabe for 6 to 8 more months, which is the end of the season. Since it's only 56 games, we won't be seeing him for the rest of the season. So he's going to be a UFA this year. We'll see what happens with him if he decides to sign a contract to come back a year, or if he tests the waters in free agency. So he's done for the year, and so now the Sabres got to call up guys like Will Borgen from the Rochester Americans, and maybe they'll create an impact on the team.
That really hurts for the Sabres too, because Ristolainen and McCabe were two guys that people were saying for years, you know, they're past their time, they should get traded. But this year they were playing really well, and they were like our two best defensemen.
Easily the best.
Yeah, and they were having like some of their best years this year. Yeah. And now they're both done. So it just hurts for the Sabres. But we'll get back to them in a little bit. Yep. Because we have to dive into that. We need a few more minutes to talk about that.
Oh, we will, for sure.
But we want to talk about the rest of the league first. So there was outdoor hockey this weekend in California, correct?
Yeah, so it was actually on the state line of Nevada over there in Lake Tahoe. So the NHL this year said, you know what, we're not going to be letting a lot of fans in this year, so we might as well just throw an outdoor game out there. This was actually played on a golf course in Lake Tahoe at like hole 18, I think it was. There weren't any fans, but they stuck a rink in there, and there were just 2 games were played over the weekend. The Saturday game was Colorado versus Vegas, and Sunday's game was Boston versus Philly. It was just a crazy thing to watch, because at an outdoor game you usually get the most fans. In this situation, you don't get any fans at all. But it was also really nice to see every single team in the outdoor series wear their reverse retro jerseys and almost make it look like an old Heritage Classic or an old Winter Classic that you'd see in major baseball or football stadiums. It was just a great feeling.
Now, was this something to replace the Winter Classic since the season hadn't started on January 1st like it normally does for the Winter Classic, or was it just a new marketing strategy for the NHL?
You got to think that that's part of it. Honestly, since the season did start like, what was it, January 9th, 10th, 13th, something like that, you got to think that plays a role for sure. But even with without the Winter Classic, the NHL would have like the Stadium Series and the Heritage Classic and stuff like that. So I think this might just be something that the NHL just wants to try and experiment with. And if it worked, the TV ratings were great for the outdoor series from this weekend. So it might just be something that the NHL wanted to try out just to see what would happen. And we'll see next year if they want to continue with this.
And the ratings were good, even though they kept messing with the times.
Yeah, so it was crazy. So I believe Saturday's game between the Avalanche and the Golden Knights was supposed to start at 3. Poor ice conditions led to like a 6 or 7 hour delay, and it ended up something like, I think it was like maybe even 7 or 8 hours delay. But it started back up 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 7:30 Pacific Time. So we saw the end of the Avalanche Golden Knights game at, 1:30 in the morning, going into Sunday. And then the Flyers Bruins game was pushed to 7:30 our time, 4:30 Pacific Time. So there was a lot of stuff with the ice that was going on. I guess there was a huge crack in the ice that needed at least a long time to switch or to fix. So they took like a 7 or 8 hour delay, and they got back to playing. So it was a lot of it was really time consuming, but it was also really fun to watch another outdoor game.
Yeah, I was curious, so I'm searching the weather here for Lake Tahoe, and right now it's 39 and sunny.
Yeah.
Tomorrow 52 and sunny. Tuesday 50 and sunny. Or excuse me, today is Monday, so 52 and sunny. Tomorrow's 50 and sunny. And that's pretty much the rest of the week. So where exactly is Lake Tahoe? Is it in Northern California, or?
I think it's like right in between the state line between California and Nevada. I think it is up north. So it might be actually colder than it even says, but I'm not really sure. They're lucky that they got these games off when they did, though, because you said 50s and high 30s. They're lucky that they got the games off this weekend when they actually could.
Yeah, like that's when you hear California and outdoor hockey, you're like, how's that going to work? But I mean, I found a picture on the map. It's where California like curves up on like the Nevada side. That's where it is. So it's like northeastern California, northwestern Nevada. But yeah, you never know, because it's like kind of across, but like it's like kitty corner to San Francisco.
Yeah.
And that's always warm. So do you know if they had any like cooling systems on the ice?
They had to have some form of like refrigeration on the ice. I'm not really sure what it was, though. I mean, we've seen in the past like Winter Classics that were played in the rain and played in Dallas. Like last year's Winter Classic was the Stars and the Preds in Texas playing. So they had to have some refrigeration thing. I think it was like 2012. It was the Capitals and Penguins, and it was literally downpouring, and they were still playing. So they have to have some form of refrigeration. It's just something went wrong with the ice, and they had to push it for both games.
Now, also this weekend, something else rare happened. The Sabres won.
There you go. Win's a win.
They beat the Devils, who gave the Sabres COVID, so that was good to see them get back in the win column. They lost tonight to the Islanders. We'll get to that in a minute, but we'll start with the good news first.
Yeah.
Go in chronological order. You want to tell us about that game a little bit?
Yep. So it was a Saturday afternoon game. Honestly, as a Sabres fan myself, I didn't even know that this game was happening until the alert came through on my phone. I'm like, oh, the Sabres are playing. Like, that's pretty cool. But it started at 12:30 against the Devils, like Kevin said, the team that gave like half the Sabres COVID. The Sabres actually took a 3-0 lead in this game, and they ended up snapping a 3-game losing streak. They went up 3-0, and then the Devils, later in the third period, started to crawl back a little bit. We all know that teams run by Lindy Ruff, they never die. They always try to come back. But the Sabres held on to win the game 3-2. But here's a crazy stat that I saw. Including tonight's game, which we'll get into in a little bit, the Sabres have won 8 regulation games out of their last 36. So you want to talk about bad stats, that's a really, really bad stat right there.
They're not winning in regulation, and they're playing very bad hockey on 5-on-5.
And
like, they're only scoring on the power play, and it's pretty much just Victor Olofsson. So that's not a good recipe for success. And like I said, with Ristolainen and McCabe out now, I'm not going to be one of those people like, oh, we're done, another season wasted. There's a lot of time left, but from what we've seen, it leads you to think that it's another one of those years. Yeah. Especially when, here's where I'm at with all this. Again, they lost 3-2 to the Islanders tonight. Yep. So they are now 5-8-2.
And still at the bottom of the division, too.
Yeah. And the Islanders are 9-6-3. But, the thing that bothers me is, I don't care who you put on the ice, you better at least try. Yeah. Because that's pretty much been, the Sabres' main problem over the last few years is guys just get complacent with losing. They come to Buffalo and it's well, we're expected to lose. It's a way of life here. No big deal. I'm getting paid my money.
The
I don't know if they actually
effort's
think that,
just not there. Yeah. It's just not there. We see teams in the NHL when they get down by 2 goals in a game. Most of the teams will always fight back. With the Sabres, it seems like they're down by 2 or 3, and they just are okay, we're just waiting for the 4th one to go in, right? So It's just, as a fan, it's just so sad to watch the Sabres have a possibility of tying the record of a 10-year playoff drought, tying the Edmonton Oilers, I believe. I think when they made the finals in 2006, they didn't go back to the playoffs until 2016, something like that, and they tied the record. So I don't want the Sabres to be another statistic, but it very well could be. Then throw on top of that the Sabres are in arguably the toughest division in all of hockey right now, with the Bruins, Caps, the Rangers, who are an extremely young team,
Flyers,
and the Flyers. I mean, it's just. I mean, a lot of it is just bad hockey. A lot of it is just unlucky.
And again, like I said, I don't mean to be one of these guys, but after 10 years of this and going through different coaches and GMs, they're to blame too. But at the same time, it feels like there's got to be a point where it's just you got to do something different. You got to do what the Bills did and just completely strip the team apart. Yeah. Get rid of the culture of losing. Bring in a whole new coach, GM, mindset. Well, we'll give Kevin Adams a little bit of shot, but just bring in a whole new slate of guys and bring in a whole new culture of guys that want to try, want to be here, they want to win. They'll give you everything they got because, I mean, you look at some of these guys, like I was saying with the Ristolainen thing, he's been here since 2012. McCabe, 2013. Reinhardt, 14.
Eichel, 15.
Gergensen's 2012.
Yep.
And it's it's not working. It's 10 years of the same players, and
and then you got to add on top of that prospects that didn't pan out, like Mikhail Grigorenko and Alex Nylander that didn't pan out. Poor draft choicing, just the overall attitudes on the ice. And I don't think you're going to get anywhere by firing your coach every 2 years. It hasn't seemed to work when you fired Bylsma or when you fired Housley. And now you got to think, is Ralph Kruger on the hot seat now? I mean, 8 regulation wins in 36 games is nothing to be proud of at all.
No. But, at the same time, it's the players aren't even trying. Yeah. So it's that's why I think, as much as I still want to give Kruger a shot and Kevin Adams, and still the players too, but there's got to be a point where you just say enough's enough, we got to blow up this whole thing, start from scratch, bring in a whole new mindset, and just move on with it. Because another thing, we have less than 2 minutes, but another very murky situation is that Jeff Skinner situation right
So,
now.
tonight-
Who got scratched tonight?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, we get the news this morning. There's a possibility of Jeff Skinner getting scratched. This was a player 2 years ago that scored 40 goals under Phil Housley, who left or who got fired, rookie Rasmus Dahlin that year, and Jack Eichel, who pretty much entered the first year of his prime. To see a 40-goal scorer 2 years later get benched, and to see him get benched over players like Kyle Oposo, who, in my honest opinion, deserved to be benched, and Casey Middlestat, who hasn't really done anything in the NHL as of yet. To see that, and plus you're paying him $9 million a year. To see him get benched is just it just frustrates me as a fan.
Like, I get it. It's like, all right, clear your mindset. Clear your mind. You have 1 point this year. 1 point. Like, yeah, Skinner hasn't played well. But then it's like, but when he does play, you put him on the fourth line.
Exactly.
And, like, if you're going to bench him, bench Oposo.
Right.
Or
Casey Middlestat.
Yeah. Like, I don't get, like, it's just like the same thing every year where there's just way too many questions, and it's like an endless cycle. And, so annoying.
It just doesn't end.
But anyways, not to leave on a negative note, but do we know when the Sabres play again?
I believe that the Sabres play, I think they have a handful of games, like a stretch of games going on. I believe that they play tomorrow sometime.
Okay, yep, so New Jersey tomorrow night at 7. So hopefully they can get back on the winning track. And Trevor, thank you for coming on. And Dee will be on next to talk about the MLB.
We've been down there. You gotta do the same. Post office. All you do is sign. So don't get nervous. Sign your name. For selective service. It takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. For selective service.
Hey guys, if you're about to turn 18, you've got to register with Selective Service. It's simple. Just go down to the post office, fill out a card, and turn it in. That's all there is to it. There's no draft now. You're just adding your name to Selective Service's list in case there's a national emergency.
So if you're 18 now, selective service, you gotta get down. Post office.
Register with Selective Service. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the law.
Takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. Selective service.
What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink.
If it's time for a drink this many times a day, you're not a social drinker. You're a problem drinker. And you could be well on your way to really messing up your life. Think about it. Talk to somebody about it. Do something about it before it's too late. A message in the interest of your better health from the American Medical Association.
This is not a commercial. If you think measles, mumps, whooping cough, or polio are nothing to worry about, you'd better think again, because they could make your child go blind or deaf. They can cripple or kill. To protect children, you have to get them immunized. Get them their shots. It costs nothing or very little, so get it done now by your doctor or local health center. Your child's future is in your hands. Don't let her down.
A message in the interest of better health from the American Medical Association.
Happy to have Dee Thomas on now to talk about the MLB. And Dee, I know Mac and I talked about a lot of these signings. There's not too much more new news to talk about in the MLB, but there's some more signings that we want to talk about, more signings that Mac and I didn't get to, and I want to just hear your perspective on things as a fellow Yankees fan. So I think we'll start right there. What do you think about the Yankees offseason so far?
I think it's great. So I personally am very happy that Brett Gardner signed with the Yankees again for his final year. That's really all I care about after the DJ LeMahieu signing. Gardner's my favorite player of all time, so seeing him back in the pinstripes for one more year is like a dream come true.
Yeah, that's crazy to think that Brett Gardner is the longest tenured Yankee. He's been there since 2008.
He's the very last person on the team who has won the World Series in 2008. He's the only person left playing for the Yankees.
I can't believe that. And that's the ironic thing is the Yankees are usually like the big flashy free agent guys.
Oh yeah.
Guys who can hit 40 home runs, 100-something RBIs, go to all-star games every year. But Gardner's just like that gritty guy that just has stuck around. He's like I feel like he would fit in with like a Cincinnati or Cleveland or Pittsburgh.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Like he's been making it work with the
I
Yankees.
agree.
And I
the
love
fact that he's been with the Yankees this long is insane. Is like crazy to think because there's not many people that stay with the Yankees for that long. You'd think they get traded, but it's been 13 years since the Yankees have won a World Series, and it's been 13 years since. So and Gardner's still there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many people have retired since then, like Jeter and Mariano and a whole bunch of iconic players for the Yankees, but Gardner is still there. He's the oldest one on the team.
Yeah. So I think the Yankees had a great offseason just for the fact that they got DJ LeMahieu back. That was like
definitely.
the main priority.
That was literally the only thing they cared about at one point. Like Ryan Cashman just wanted, DJ back, and they were willing to do whatever they wanted to get him back. And DJ wanted a multi-year contract and didn't just want a single-year contract. So for them to finally make it work, that was all the Yankee fans were waiting for, was just that day to come. And then that day came, and it was just like, okay, baseball could finally get started.
Yeah. So and the day that they signed LeMahieu was when they got Kluber too.
Yes, they signed Corey Kluber the same day, which is also, it's crazy to think because, Kluber hasn't really thrown in like a year or more, and everyone's saying like, why did we sign him? Like, we just need to replace our pitchers. Like, we're down pitchers, so, to sign Kluber, who's someone who's coming back, hopefully before the season starts, that's a great addition to our rotation because we lost Jay Happ, James Paxton also.
Tanaka went back to Japan.
He went back to Japan. So we lost a lot of starters. So signing Kluber is also just a great addition to the Yankees. I think he'll look great in pinstripes.
And then the Yankees also acquired Jameson Taillon from the Pirates, who's coming off an injury. Severino's expected to be back about June or July. And then we still don't know what's going on with Domingo Germán. Zach Britton actually called him out this week and said,
"Yeah,
what did he say? I forgot. It was like
saying
you
that
can't choose who your teammates are.
You can't pick your teammates as much as you want to." Basically, in a nutshell, is what Zach Britton said, and Aaron Boone tried to kind of like die down the situation, but it's out there already. Germán wants to make he wants to meet in front of his teammates before he meets in front of everyone to just kind of give him his viewpoint and explain the whole thing. But he's in some really bad wavy waters right now. So I don't know how things are going to go, because if he comes back, our rotation's going to be great. But like Zach Britton said, you can't pick your teammates as much as you want to.
Yeah. So a few more transactions that happened since we last aired, and that'll transition us into the rest of the league as we had some more news develop this week. But the Yankees also signed Kyle Barraclough, Julius Chassin, Nick Goody, Adam Warren, Socrates Brito, Jay Bruce, Rob Brantley, Robinson Chirinos, Nestor Cortez, Derek Dietrich. And that's pretty much those are the main major names
the ones that
people
stand
would know.
out. Yeah.
But they agreed to terms on minor league contracts with them. But like I said, going to the rest of the league now, some major news. Fernando Tatis got a massive contract.
14 years, $340 million with the Padres. Just a fun fact, I will be 34 when his contract ends. So that's crazy to think that I could be married and have kids, and this guy will still be playing for the San Diego Padres.
And I saw a stat that said the Mets will still owe Bobby Bonilla for one more year after Tatis' contract is up.
$340 million, that's that is so much money.
For a 22-year-old.
So
he's a year older than us. It's crazy.
To be making that much money now in life, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, so the Padres are going to be real good because they have him, Manny Machado. They acquired Yu Darvish, Blake Snell this year.
Yeah, they got a lot. The power rankings just got released by MLB, and the Padres were power ranked as number 2, and the Yankees were number 3. Dodgers, of course, were number 1 because they got huge signings this offseason. But going into the trading still, there was this 3-way trade between Boston, the Royals and the Mets with Andrew Benintendi, which
Yeah, Benintendi was the main one.
Yeah, and I never thought Andrew Benintendi would leave the Red Sox. I thought he would be with the Red Sox his entire life, like Gardner. But you never know what could happen for money, basically, because it was a cash consideration. So.
Yes, like I said, Benintendi was the main piece of that trade. He went to Kansas City. The Red Sox got Frankie Cordero and 2 players to be named from Kansas City, Josh Winkowski from the Mets, and a player to be named later. And then the Mets also got Khalil Lee, or not also, that was the one player that they got, Khalil Lee from Kansas City. And then we also had the Pirates sign Todd Frazier to a minor league contract with an invite to spring training. I like that for the Pirates because they're not going to go out and sign guys like, well, obviously Tatis wasn't a free agent, but they're not going to pull in a $340 million contract.
They don't have the money to. No, absolutely not. And didn't Todd Frazier was our third baseman at one point for the Yankees, wasn't he? Like just a few years ago?
Yeah. Actually, I met him in Pittsburgh. I got his autograph years ago when he was coming up with the Reds. So maybe that's a good sign for Pittsburgh.
Definitely. Another free agent signing. Justin Turner re-signed with the Dodgers, which is good. He's a key player for them. Jackie Bradley still hasn't signed with anyone, which is kind of concerning because he's been with the Red Sox for a while. Like we mentioned earlier, Tanaka went back to Japan, which took a big toll on the Yankees. Everyone loved Tanaka. There were so many bonds with the guys, and they obviously support him all the way, but losing him from our rotation is definitely a big hit on the Yankees.
Yeah, so just a few minutes left. Mac and I got through about the top 25 last week on this list that I'm looking at, so I want to just continue on with that, and if we don't finish, we'll talk a little bit more next week. But we have like 3-4 minutes left, so we'll just see where we can get. So the next one on the list was Brett Gardner, who obviously just signed with the Yankees. Taijuan Walker, he was another recent signing. He just signed with the Mets from Toronto. Mike Minor went from Oakland to Kansas City. Corey Kluber, like we said, he went from Texas to the Yankees. Cesar Hernandez, he stayed in Cleveland. Robbie Grossman went from Oakland to Detroit. Pedro Baez went from the Dodgers to the Astros. Alex Colomé went from the White Sox to the Twins. Blake Treinen re-signed with the Dodgers. Trevor May went from the Twins to the Mets. Trevor Rosenthal went from the Padres to the A's. Jonathan Scope re-signed with the Tigers, and that brings us to 40, so I'll stop myself right there. Do you have any comments to make on any of those before we finish the top or the bottom 20 here?
Not really. I think the biggest name, Jake Odorizzi, I don't think you mentioned, still hasn't signed with anyone.
Oh yeah, and then he was one of the ones that's still a free agent.
He's still a free agent, which I'm very surprised about because he's a very good player. But I mean, maybe the Twins will keep him. Who knows? But trading and signing is coming to an end soon with games starting up shortly. So either a team needs to make a decision, he needs to make a decision, but I don't see him not playing this year anywhere.
So finishing out the list here, Jerickson Profar re-signed with the Padres. Mitch Moreland went from the Padres to the A's. C.J. Cron went from Detroit to Colorado. Brad Miller went from the Cardinals to the Phillies. Carlos Santana, that was probably one of the bigger ones too. He left Cleveland for a second time and went to Kansas City. Mark Melancon went to San Diego to bolster up their bullpen. Kirby Yates left the Padres for the Blue Jays. Ken Giles went from the Blue Jays to the Mariners just recently. And then Marwin Gonzalez went from Minnesota to the Red Sox. One quick comment I have, I think San Diego and Toronto are going to be really good this year.
You think?
Yeah.
I mean, Toronto did not do well this year, and now they've got George Springer, the top
and Marcus Semien too.
Yeah, so they've got some good players.
Maybe
that'll spark up their their team chemistry. Maybe that was the thing. But they're still playing in Buffalo as of now, correct? Or
I saw a rumor. Yeah, I don't think it's finalized, but they might be in Buffalo, and that might mean that we might be able to see them if they allow fans in, because New York announced a 10% capacity. I don't know if that's for the MLB too, but I mean, that'd be great to go see.
That would be great, especially
Major League Baseball in Buffalo.
Yeah. So that's interesting to think that, you know, the Toronto Blue Jays could be possibly playing here, and we could finally see some baseball in action. But who knows? But definitely, I think signings needs to come to an end, and baseball games actually need to start.
Yeah, as spring training is about to get started here, the last big name on the list was Jose Quintana. He went from Chicago to the Angels, but that is it. We made it through the big list that we wanted to, so thanks for helping us finish up, D. And next, Meyer will come on to talk about the NBA.
We've been down there. You gotta do the same. Post office, all you do is sign. So don't get nervous. Sign your name. For selective service, it takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. For selective service.
Hey guys, if you're about to turn 18, you've got to register with Selective Service. It's simple. Just go down to the post office, fill out a card, and turn it in. That's all there is to it. There's no draft now. You're just adding your name to Selective Service's list in case there's a national emergency.
So if you're 18 now, Selective Service, you gotta get down to the post office.
Register with Selective Service. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the law.
Takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. Selective Service.
What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink.
If it's time for a drink this many times a day, you're not a social drinker. You're a problem drinker. And you could be well on your way to really messing up your life. Think about it. Talk to somebody about it. Do something about it before it's too late. A message in the interest of your better health from the American Medical Association.
This is not a commercial.
If you think measles, mumps, whooping cough, or polio are nothing to worry about, you'd better think again, because they could make your child go blind or deaf. They can cripple or kill. To protect children, you have to get them immunized. Get them their shots. It costs nothing or very little, so get it done now by your doctor or local health center. Your child's future is in your hands. Don't let her down.
A message in the interest of better health from the American Medical Association.
Happy to have Meyer Mikulski back on the set to talk NBA with us once again. Meyer, what's going on tonight?
I mean, it's still a lot of basketball going on as we see every day.
Yeah, we're into the thick of the season here, as we'll just get right into it. So we're gonna talk about a couple games from each day over the weekend. So starting with Friday's game, we had the 76ers defeat the Bulls 112-105, and it was a career night for Joel Embiid.
Yeah, so my takeaway from that game was that Joel Embiid, he basically played the game of his life. He had 50 points, 17 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 4 blocks, so he pretty much did it all. And I believe he also made a strong case for MVP with that game as well. And him and Zach LaVine, they went tit for tat towards the end of the game, but the Bulls, they just couldn't pull out all the stops, even though they were hanging around the whole game.
Yeah, so the 76ers, as of right now, they're in first place in the East with a 20-11 record. The Bulls are in 9th. They're a half game out of the playoffs right now. They're 14-16. So what do you think about each team here, Meyer? Is it the year for the 76ers? Do you see them making a run?
I believe the Sixers are the biggest threat to the Brooklyn Nets right now.
Yeah, because Brooklyn looks real tough, as they're right behind them half game. They are 20-12. Obviously, they have the new big three with KD, Kyrie, and Harden. But the 76ers is pretty much been Embiid. He's been leading them this year, right?
Yeah, exactly. And Ben Simmons, he's been doing his thing quietly as well. But, you know, people still have people have their expectations for him. Like, they want him to be more aggressive. Because when he's more aggressive, it opens the game not only for him, but it opens up for his teammates as well.
Yeah, and Seth Curry, he's been a pivotal piece too, right?
Yes.
Seth Curry, not Steph. Seth, his brother. And then who was the other? Is it Tobias Harris?
Yeah, Tobias Harris still there.
Okay, I was blanking on his name. So, yeah, they have like a nice little core as J.J. Redick is down in New Orleans.
Yeah, he's in New Orleans.
That's right, okay, yeah.
And I like the makeup of their team a lot more this year rather than last year, because last year there wasn't a lot of spacing for Ben Simmons to really drive or Joel Embiid to get his post touches. But this year is making a difference now with all the shooting they added.
So the next game on the list from Friday night, the Clippers and the Jazz, and the Clippers took this one 116 to 112.
So my takeaway for the Clippers is that they've been quietly handling their business this season, but fans want to see that same energy in the playoffs. And as for the Jazz, Donovan Mitchell, he's still learning how to balance scoring with playmaking. And Jordan Clarkson, despite having a rough night, he's still a runaway favorite to be Sixth Man of the Year.
Yeah, Clarkson had 40 the other night, right?
Yeah, not in this game, but in a different game.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was within the last week, though. I saw he had like 40, I think, right?
Yes.
Was that off the bench he had 40?
Yes, he comes off the bench for them.
Man, that was a nice find for them. He was acquired from Cleveland. Was it the Dante Exum trade?
Yes, it was that trade.
So it was Exum for Clarkson.
I think it was straight up.
Yeah, it might have been straight up. It might have been a couple other pieces in there, but he re-signed with the Jazz, and they really like him. And he's been proving his point out in Utah. So he's been a nice piece for them off the bench. And again, the Jazz, 24-6. They are in first place in the Western Conference, but the Clippers are right there, 22-10. 3 games back, but like you said, Meyer, with the Clippers every year, it's you can get there, but what are you going to do once you get there in the playoffs? Because usually they're not able to make that run. Like people think every year, oh, maybe this is their year. They have Kawhi, Paul George, and then just nothing.
But you can have all the names you want, but at the end of the day, it's about who's the most cohesive unit.
Well, speaking of a cohesive unit, as at least last year, as they were the champions, the Lakers, they had a rematch with the Heat from the finals last year, and Miami took this one 96-94.
So my takeaway from this game is that it was a low-scoring game overall. For the Heat, it was a big win for them, and it's a game that they could build on to eventually lead them towards the playoffs. And in the first quarter, he played ultra aggressive, and ended up playing a good all-around game. In the first half, the Heat, they controlled the pace more, but in the second half, the Lakers started to claw back, and the Heat started getting a little careless with the ball, and they put themselves in some tough spots. But luckily for them, Caruso missed the game-winning shot.
Came down to Alex Caruso. So, yeah, like you said, maybe Miami can build on this. We mentioned them last week as they haven't really been able to find their footing this year. Just a few months after going to the finals. 13-17 now. They are in 10th place. They are a game and a half out of 8th spot, the 8th spot. And then, meanwhile, the Lakers are 22-9, and they are in 2nd place, 2.5 behind the Jazz. So, on Saturday, another great game as Terry Rozier stunned the Warriors at the buzzer, and the Hornets defeated the Warriors 102-100.
Yeah, the Hornets, they're one of the surprising teams this season. I really didn't expect a lot from them before the season started. And I have a confession to make. I was wrong about Terry Rozier. I thought he was a one-year wonder, but he's proven that he's more than just that 1 year he had in 2018. Yeah,
he's been a nice pickup for them. Was that free agency or trade?
It was basically a trade, but it was sign and trade. It was him. He traded places with Kemba Walker, basically.
Yeah, okay, that was it. And then Gordon Hayward, too.
Yeah, but Gordon Hayward came this offseason.
Yeah. But I was just saying, both of the Celtics. But yeah, so it was basically like Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier for Kemba Walker. And, I mean, for both teams, it seems to be working out pretty well. I mean, the Celtics are 15-15, so maybe not as well this year at least.
They've been struggling lately, but we're going to get into that in a few.
Yeah, so the next game we have, the Pelicans came back from a 24-point deficit. Well, there we go, against the Celtics.
Speaking of which.
As the Pelicans defeated them 120 to 115.
So Pelicans, they really started clawing back in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, in overtime, by the way.
Yeah, and they had 48 points to Boston's 26 in the fourth quarter and overtime combined. And Ingram, he hit the dagger in overtime for them to win the game. In the fourth quarter, my bad. In the fourth quarter, they traded leads, and Tatum, he forced overtime with a floater, but ended up not being enough for them to close the deal in the end.
Yeah, so what do you think the deal with Boston is this year? Was it that Gordon Hayward, and going back to like last year with the Terry Rozier thing, were those that big of losses, or is it just like I don't know, like what do you think is going on with Boston this year? Because last year they were like right in the top with Milwaukee in the East, and now they're in sixth with a 500 record.
Yeah, part of it is who they lost, but another part of it is their style of play too. I believe a one-on-one style of play isn't sustainable for the long run.
Yeah, so has Kemba really been that effective? Because didn't I see people were like complaining about him on Twitter, saying that he's been really struggling this year?
He's really only had one good game this season, but he hasn't looked like the Kemba Walker that we know of.
Because last year he played really well,
he
but
was
this
an
year,
all-star.
yeah, this year he hasn't. So I guess this year you would say I'd rather have Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier, but maybe last year you would have said we're okay. Kemba's been playing great, but I mean, it's a new year.
But who knows how good Rozier and Hayward would be if they were still in Boston? Now, hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah, true. So the next game on our list here, the Knicks held off the Timberwolves yesterday 103 to 99, and right after the game, the Timberwolves fired Ryan Saunders.
Yeah, I was surprised at the timing of him being fired. I wasn't surprised of him being fired in itself, but just the time of it. I feel like it was messed up that they fired him right after the game.
Yeah, now he was the son of Flip Saunders, right?
Yeah, rest in peace, Flip Saunders.
Yeah, so, well, I can't remember. Did it go right from Flip to Ryan as the coach? Or did they have someone else?
Tom Thibodeau was their coach at one point, too.
Oh, that's right, okay. So, was this Saunders, was that his first year or second?
He did like one and a half years because he was coaching them last year too.
Okay, that's right. Because did Thibodeau get fired?
Yeah, Thibodeau got fired right before, and then Ryan Saunders started coaching the team.
Okay, and then this offseason, the Knicks hired Thibodeau, and obviously Saunders was there, but he's no longer there, and they are in dead last in the West. They are 7-24. Meanwhile, the Knicks, they are one game under 500. They are 15-16. They're in 7th place. And we talked about Julius Randle last week. Right after we got off the air, we learned that he had a 40-point effort against the Hawks. And he just keeps proving himself as an all-star this year.
Yeah, and he kind of showed flashes of this in New Orleans. And Knicks fans, they expected this from him last season. But this year, he's made up for last season. And at first, I was skeptical on if the Knicks play this season was sustainable. But I think they're for real this year.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week. And I think a lot of it has to do with Tom Thibodeau just, setting that culture and saying, like, hey, we're going to play defense. You're going to hustle, you're going to put a lot of effort in, and we're not just going to do iso ball and have Julius Randle throw up, fadeaways from the elbow, and we're going to get guys
in traffic all the time.
Yeah, and we're going to get guys involved, and we're going to pass the ball. Everyone's going to touch the ball, and that's going to be the new way of Knick basketball. And so far, it's been working. And I think when you have a guy like Tom Thibodeau, that success is sustainable, because I feel like he's just very hard on his players, and he won't let them fall apart like that. Whereas last year, or in the previous years, they haven't had like that coach to really get him on the right track.
Yeah, and the one thing I realized about Tom Thibodeau is that he's more of a builder coach. He's one of those coaches where he has to have a young team where he could guide and mold them into how he wants them to be in order for them to ultimately be successful.
Yeah, so we'll see if the Knicks can continue on with this success. Now, 2 games, we have a couple minutes left, so 2 games that are in progress right now that we want to highlight. Memphis and Dallas. There's a minute left in this game. The Mavericks are leading this one 100-90.
Wow.
So, looking at the stats here, John Morant has 22 points to lead the Grizzlies, and then for the Mavericks, Luka Doncic has 21 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Tim Hardaway Jr. has 27 points, Jalen Brunson 19, and then Josh Richardson 17. So, I mean, when you look at this game, you automatically think Luka versus Morant. So, well, like I said, this time Tim Hardaway, really haven't heard much of him since the Porzingis trade with the Knicks. But to be honest, I kind of forgot he was still with Dallas. But it looks like the Mavericks are going to take this one. They're neck and neck with the Grizzlies in the standings. It's Golden State, they're the 8th seed right now, and then the Grizzlies are a half game behind them, and then the Mavericks are a game and a half. So it's all really close out in the West. And then the other game that we were going to mention, the Suns and the Blazers, right now, just got to go back on my page here. So it is the end of the 3rd quarter. Phoenix leads this one 100-71. And Phoenix has really been a nice team to watch this year with the addition of Chris Paul.
Yeah, they finally got rid of that curse of losing for 10 years. And I feel like Chris Paul has been a big key in that, in changing the culture of that team.
Yeah, for sure. So they are 19-10. They're in 4th place in the Western Conference, and then the Trailblazers are 18-11. They are 1 game back. So I didn't even realize this when we were writing the script, but both of those games tonight, both of those teams are back to back. So that's interesting, especially because the Suns are blowing them out.
And if the playoffs started today, those teams would be facing right now.
That's right. So, Meyer, I think that will wrap it up here. Any final thoughts on the NBA or just basketball in general? I mean, college basketball, we have March Madness coming up. You and I are in a bracketology class.
Well, once March rolls around, I'll probably be paying more attention to college basketball than NBA.
Yeah. And who's your college team again?
I used to be a big UConn fan, actually.
Oh, okay. I'm a local guy, so St. Bonaventure, UB, Canisius, Niagara, Syracuse, Notre Dame too. Notre Dame's struggling, but Bonnies are leading the A-10, so we'll see. But Meyer, thanks for coming on, and we'll have to talk more NBA next week. And like you said, once March rolls around, we'll get college basketball on here too. So thanks, and I will be going off too, as Josh and Jared will be coming on to talk about soccer. So I will see you guys next week.
We've been down there. You gotta do the same. Post office, all you do is sign. So don't get nervous. Sign your name. Selective service. It takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. Selective service.
Hey guys, if you're about to turn 18, you've got to register with Selective Service. It's simple. Just go down to the post office, fill out a card, and turn it in. That's all there is to it. There's no draft now. You're just adding your name to Selective Service's list in case there's a national emergency.
So if you're 18 now, Selective Service, you gotta get down. Post office.
Register with Selective Service. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the law.
Takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. Selective Service.
What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink.
If it's time for a drink this many times a day, you're not a social drinker. You're a problem drinker. And you could be well on your way to really messing up your life. Think about it. Talk to somebody about it. Do something about it before it's too late. A message in the interest of your better health from the American Medical Association.
This is not a commercial.
If you think measles, mumps, whooping cough, or polio are nothing to worry about, you'd better think again, because they could make your child go blind or deaf. They can cripple or kill. To protect children, you have to get them immunized. Get them their shots. It costs nothing or very little, so get it done now by your doctor or local health center. Your child's future is in your hands. Don't let her down.
A message in the interest of better health from the American Medical Association.
Welcome back to Sports Hour. I'm Josh Schmidt alongside Jared Marsh. We're here to talk about the Premier League and the UEFA Champions League. So, kick things off. A big firing happened.
Yeah.
Chelsea fires Frank Lampard, which is insane. I mean, he's a legend at the club, and then when they hired him, it's like, wow, okay, he's going to be great. He was working well with Pulisic. He was working well with the rest of the whole team, really, and they just weren't getting what they wanted. They were, in 11th place after 18 months, and the club decided that's not very good. So, it's shocking to me.
Yeah, and it is really shocking, but Chelsea just hasn't been overall really good since a long time, since even when Frank Lampard played for them. They were good back then, but even now they're just they're okay. Now they're improving, but it's a little better.
Right. It's just shocking to see. These guys are in 11th place and they're paying hundreds of millions of dollars for their players, and they're not getting the results they wanted. They go out and they get Timo Werner, they get Christian Pulisic, and he's playing amazing. It's great to see as an American standpoint, but and they got Kai Havertz and Rudiger as well, and they're just not performing the way. It might be a transition to the English Premier League soccer from the Bundesliga, but it's just not working out for Chelsea in this sense, and it's just tough to see.
Yeah, but I think the one great move, though, that they did make is signing this new coach, Thomas Tuchel. He's a local German. He used to coach PSG, and then who he left in December, and then he just left Borussia Dortmund, who is pretty much the main soccer team in the Bundesliga league.
I'd argue that one. Bayern Munich's pretty good as well.
Well, they're both up there.
Right,
Both up there. But
for sure.
He signs an 18-month contract with Chelsea, and there's also an option to extend it. Which is great to hear for them.
And he was great with PSG. When they first came to prominence with Neymar and Mbappe, they were a powerhouse to be reckoned with. France is everyone says it's a farmers league, but they were great in the Champions League. And he did pretty decent at Dortmund. They were giving Bayern a run for their money in first place. But I think he's going to do very well with Chelsea, and especially with a lot of those German players. He's going to mesh very well with them.
Yeah, I think, just like I said, I think that's a great signing for Chelsea. I think hopefully going forward, I know they have a huge match tomorrow in the UEFA League, which we'll talk about later, with Atletico. So hopefully they can bounce back, and hopefully they can keep going forward, so to say, at the table.
So Tuchel and Hasenhüttl are two managers that know each other very well. They're both from the Bundesliga, and now they're both coaching in the EPL. They ended up in a draw in a game between Chelsea and Southampton, 1-1. And tell us a little bit about that game. It's kind of an interesting game to see these two former German rivals take on each other in the English Premier League.
Yeah, so it was a crazy game. Obviously, it's only a 1-1 draw. But the big thing is that these two coaches coming over, from the Bundesliga, they really changed both of these clubs around. Southampton's still in the middle of the table, but Chelsea, like you said, went from 11th to 9th, and now they're in 5th. They're just out of the top 4. So I think this was a huge game for both of them, for both of these teams, because we got to see the managers in their time and their pride, and we get to see how much of an impact the managers had on this game.
Yeah, and one of the big impacts for Southampton is missing Theo Walcott. I know from his time at Everton and even his time at Arsenal, he's a very big, high-impact player for the team he's playing for, and he's a real leader out on the pitch, and he was definitely missed during that game. But it's crazy to see how Southampton is just taking on these bigger clubs. It's wild to see what they used to be and now what they are now.
Yeah. So Southampton plays against Leeds United tomorrow at 1. And I think they're gonna win this one because coming off this draw with Chelsea, you still get a point out of it, but now with this new manager, I think they can kind of move forward, so to say.
And they have that confidence under him now too. So it's just positives and positives. And like you said earlier, Chelsea is facing off against Atletico tomorrow, and it's going to be a tough game.
Oh, absolutely.
Atletico they're a very good club. They rival for the first place spot in the in La Liga.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a big Champions League game tomorrow for them.
And I think the biggest question is that can Chelsea win this game without Pulisic and Thiago Silva?
I don't know. It's tough because Pulisic has done so much for this team since he came in, and Thiago Silva. how can you go wrong with Thiago Silva?
Exactly. He's a great defender for them. He replaced Gary Cahill. I'm not sure where he went, but I mean, he's it's just, I don't know. It's going to be a hard game, and we'll have to see.
Right. So moving on a little bit, Liverpool falling down the table after being so good for so long, and it's shocking to me. I remember, I mean, I'm an Everton fan, and Everton beat Liverpool 2-0 in Anfield. Anfield. For the first time since 1999. That's incredible, and I was like shocked. I mean, every time we play them, it's usually a very high-scoring game, and Liverpool ends up winning. But they're not the team they used to be. They're missing Van Dijk, they're missing Joel Matip and Fabinho, and it's just they're falling. They're not in sixth place. I mean, that's insane. I love it because
because you're in Everton. So they lost their last 4 games. I mean, they're coming off their 4th loss here. I mean, and obviously they lose Jordan Henderson.
Yep,
probably their most valuable player, their captain, lose him to a hamstring injury.
Right, and I mean, if this keeps up for them, you wonder what they're going to do. You know, you wonder if they're going to try to change something up, send away a big name. I don't really think you can blame it on Jurgen Klopp.
No, you can't. No.
I mean, this is just injuries at this point. So it's tough times for them. But, I mean, Everton's coming off. They came off 2 losses, and they bounced back against one of their tougher opponents that they've always had trouble with. And they've just been playing fantastic. I mean, Richarlison has looked amazing for them this year.
And then, obviously, that 83rd minute with the penalty shot by Gylfi Sigurdsson.
Yep.
So I saw this today, and this is very interesting because it was a foul by Alexander-Arnold in the box. And it was like a huge controversy because the ref was like, he was going to go look at the VAR, and he was deciding if he should get a penalty kick or a red card. Because I know like a couple weeks ago, David Luiz, he did the exact same thing. And I know that like there's so many refs that'll either give the penalty or they'll give the red card. And I think, I think it was the right decision in the long run. He did want to give him the red card as well, but he didn't want to like make Liverpool suffer anymore that they already were. So in my honest opinion of this, I think maybe it should have been a red card and a penalty because, I mean, he was denying him a goal-scoring opportunity.
Right.
So what do you think about that?
I mean, I always thought if it was a red card, it was a penalty.
Yeah.
And it just would make more sense to have it that way. I mean, you get a yellow card when you concede a penalty.
Yeah, exactly.
And you should if you get a red card, you should also concede a penalty.
Yeah.
Speaking from an Everton standpoint, I mean, it was great, but an unbiased standpoint, I think it just makes more sense to keep that consistency, and I don't know why it was never like that before.
Yeah,
and I mean, it sounds like it's caused a lot of controversy in the past.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is the first I'm hearing of it, and along with the David Luiz situation from a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, like, I've seen refs called it so many different ways. It's either it's a red card, it's a penalty, or it's both. I mean, just stick with one way and be consistent in it. You can't keep changing it.
Right. And to finish things up here, our big bit of Champions League news: Kylian Mbappe and PSG rolled over Barcelona. A 4-1 win, Mbappe with a hat trick. And I mean, this is looking more and more like Messi's end in Barcelona, and possibly Mbappe's move to Barcelona.
Yeah.
Which would be insane.
Yeah. So here's something that I thought was interesting. So here's Barcelona's lineup now: Messi, Griezmann, and Dembele versus the old Barcelona: Messi, Suarez, and Neymar. Obviously, Messi being the factor there.
Right.
But there's 2 different players here. I mean, Griezmann is kind of like Neymar. I mean, obviously he doesn't dive or all that, but they kind of play similar. And Dembele is kind of like Suarez. So what do you think? Like, their Messi, Griezmann, and Dembele should like kind of work more together in practice to like not become like Suarez and Neymar? But like, what do you think about that?
I think the main problem here is Messi and Neymar and Suarez played so much together.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the trio.
Exactly.
And Neymar never should have left Barcelona, not only for Messi's sake, but for his own career. I mean, Neymar's career has gone down the tubes.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, he got that big deal to PSG, and he was fantastic for like a year.
Yeah.
And then that was it. He's partying too much. It's just a sad end to a career, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But that's going to be all the time we have for today. We're going to have to see how those games turn out. And March 1st is going to be our next episode, so we're going to get some March Madness going here. So until next time, we'll see you next week.